So I just read over your form. Seems like standard obedience stuff, and you want off-leash obedience. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you just recently got your dog.
November 13th. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. So only it's been a couple of months. And how's that been for you for these past couple of months?
The first 2 weeks were a good adjustment for him. He would get really anxious when I put him in the crate and would have to leave.
Okay.
But we've been working on that, and yeah, honestly, he's been learning really quick, and I just want to be teaching him the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the anxiousness when you leave now?
It's virtually gone. Like he seems happy to be in his crate, and when I leave, I've even waited a few minutes outside and haven't heard any barking or anything.
Okay. What's his day look like?
So I try and give him at least a mile walk every day. Because the little backyard space I have it's there, but it's not very big. It's not a lot of room for him to move around. And he spends like maybe 3 hours in his crate max, but that's not every day. That's only 3 days a week right now.
Okay. Is that with like your work schedule or?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you mainly working from home or?
Yeah, I'm a dance teacher, so right now all my stuff is virtual. Like I just taught a bunch of dance classes right here.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay. And how's he doing on that walk? Is he pulling a lot? Is he like kind of all over the place or?
My vet recommended the Pet Safe head collar thingy.
Yeah.
And that worked miracles. Like he seemed to get it right away that he wasn't supposed to pull.
Uh-huh. And then in terms of if you could have the training you wanted, right, and the control you wanted, what would you end up doing with Kilo? Like, what would that life look like?
I mean, I'd like to be able to take him to like some more outdoor areas that aren't, specifically designed for dogs to be enclosed, and trust him enough to be able to stick with me or explore a little bit and be able to come back.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
I had been taking him to dog parks the first couple of weeks I got him, and didn't see any issues at all. And then I was there 2 weeks ago, and there was a little incident he had with a golden retriever.
Okay.
They were both like biting the back of the neck. It started out playful, and then it just got a little too rough. So I've been nervous about taking him back.
Okay. With that escalation, I mean, did it turn into like a scuffle, or was it just
the golden was grabbing on the back of his neck and wouldn't let go, and he was like trying to fight back, and he was just making sounds that I hadn't heard before.
Sure. It sounds like he's starting to panic.
Yeah.
And then what the other owner do?
The other owner was pretty quick about it. He came over and gave the dog like a little kick to the ribs, and it stopped it right away.
Okay.
I felt bad and kind of freaked out.
Sure. Okay. And we'll talk about that. So like you would essentially like do like more outdoorsy stuff with him, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Would you ever, and I think things are obviously weird right now, but like take him to a restaurant with you, maybe take him to a friend's house with you type of stuff?
I just did that last night, actually. For the first time, we sat on a patio, and he did very well. I was shocked by how well he did. He sat there the whole time and was fine.
Was it a busy environment, or was it like
it was pretty quiet, but we were on it's on Milwaukee. It was the Harding Tavern on Milwaukee, so we were like right on the street.
Sure.
So there's quite a lot going on, and he seemed okay. Other dogs would walk by and he'd get really excited and amped up.
And during this time, because you said you're in mid-November, have you seen any issues with leash reactivity or anything like that, or he's been good?
Yeah, he seems fine. He seems excited to see the leash, and he knows what it means.
And how old is he?
He's about a year.
Okay. Anything else you think I should know about Kilo, or?
This might be a more veterinary thing, but he has a weird cough that he does every now and then.
Okay.
It's mostly at night. Like I hear him doing it late hours of the morning.
Mm.
And it's like a wheezy cough thing.
Sure.
The vet told me it could have been like kennel cough from when I adopted him, something pretty normal. It went away for a little bit, but now it's coming back. So he's going back to the vet on Monday to see what's going on.
Gotcha. You sure he's not sneaking any cigarettes or something?
What's that?
He's not sneaking any cigarettes?
Oh, not that I know of.
Okay, yeah. So check with your vet, see what happens. If it starts to become more habitual, like you said, you notice to go down and start to come back, then I'd have them check it out. Wouldn't, in my opinion, have anything to do with the training unless it is kennel cough. Then because I have my facility obviously in Logan Square. Right. Is kennel cough is like super contagious from what I know of it. And then of course if we came in, obviously we have daycare dogs and stuff like that we'd have to like wait for them to at least get better. We did have a dog, I think, that was diagnosed with kennel cough, but they had caught it before they brought him in. And I think by the next week or even maybe a few days, the dog was back after like taking the medication, if I remember that correctly.
Okay.
So yeah, have them take a look at it. Otherwise, I mean, if we started training, it just means we have to work outside. So,
yeah. Okay.
So anything else?
Okay.
And then how'd you hear about us?
I saw the Instagram videos, and then I've been hooked since. I've been following a few tips that you guys posted, like the slow feeder bowls. I just got one of those.
Oh, sure, with Maddie.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So she does a lot of like the enrichment stuff, the puppy stuff, nutrition, things like that. So yeah, she's got more and more stuff in the works. I have my stuff. Mine's a little bit different just because I use prong and e-collar.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah. I haven't used either though, so I don't have any experience.
Yeah, and I'll educate you on what those are and how they work and stuff. But trainers like myself that use those tools, we tend to be like, people look at this like the last resort a lot of times, because they're thinking, oh, my dog's a good dog. Why would I need to use these like things? But they're really the only tools that actually can guarantee reliable obedience. And for me, reliable is like, no matter what the situation is, I can regain control. Yeah. Whether it's the dog, running away. The most common thing is like fireworks, right? So a lot of dogs are scared of fireworks. So if a dog is running away from a firework, the only tool that can guarantee the return is actually the e-collar. Okay. Prong collar is great. That's the spiky looking one. However, if your dog is off the leash, you have no means of making them return. Right. E-collar still gives you connection even off the leash. So for my stuff, it's more so about educating people on what these tools are, because people tend to think like, oh my God, you're torturing the dog or you're shocking the dog and all that stuff. And it's really just misinformation or just the way people perceive things. It's just incorrect. Okay. Yeah. So the reason why I was asking the questions about like what your life with Kilo would look like and stuff is that because that determines kind of like the length of the program, like what we teach and all that stuff. Because I don't teach what you're not going to use.
Sure.
Right. So most trainers, you go and like the first thing they usually teach is like the sit command and then like maybe stay and then down. Like it's very regimented. Whereas for me, from experience, almost always the person wants to learn how to walk their dog without pulling. Okay. So, and a lot of places usually push that towards the end. Whereas I always put it at the beginning because one, it has to happen first before we teach anything else with e-collar. But also it's the one thing that everybody wants to fix. It's just a dog pulling. Yeah. With the tool that you have I call it a gentle leader. So you said it's the Pet Safe. So it's like a different brand, but it's the same tool. It's great when the dog is on leash, right? But off leash, again, you have to remove that leash. You no longer have control now. And it really more so, it gives you much better handling because it controls the head. So if you know how to use it correctly, it is an effective tool. However, if left to their own devices, the dog will almost always start to like forge ahead. But if they forge, what happens is it turns the head, right? Because when they put pressure, the way it's situated on the muzzle, it just kind of detours the pulling power. Yeah. So I've seen people walk their dogs and the dog's walking with their head turned because it does nothing to teach here, right? And the dog will just walk like this, still pulling, but the owner is not. They have more leverage that the dog's not dragging them down. Okay, so the way that I train is I want the dog to be in sync with you. So if I say heel and I start walking, like for example, like if I took 5 steps, Kilo would take 5 steps. If I took 1 step, Kilo would take 1 step. When I stop, he would automatically sit. And this was the completely slack leash or off leash if you're looking to get them to that degree. Okay, so that's the level of focus that I want. I want to be able to say heel and just walk with my dog, and not have to be like, always having to like pull them back or like do continuous work of trying to keep him at my side. Okay, because it's people tend to control dogs physically, and I say you want to control them mentally. Okay, because if you control the brain, you control everything else. Okay, and when I talk about taking 5 steps and all that stuff, and the dog kind of mimicking what you're doing, people tend to think it's really complicated, but it's very simple. We usually get this done by the first class. By the end of the first class, the dog knows how to heel. Then it's the owner goes home and practices, and it just kind of tightens it up and makes it better. Then we come back to second class and they go, where are you at? We see a review. Okay, this looks good. Now we're going to put a name on it. We're going to call it heel. And the second class will probably be easy for you because you said you're a dance teacher, correct? Yeah. So we do a lot of leg movements to communicate with the dog. Because I've had clients in the past that were dancers, and they at that time I used to teach the dog in front of you, and then you would watch, and then I would hand them to you, and then I would coach you through it. So my clients that were dancers, they would always go like, oh, you're doing this with your left foot and you're crossing over with your right foot and all that stuff. So when it came to them doing it, it was real easy for them to pick up, because healing with the dog is much like dancing. I use dancing all the time as a kind of an analogy, because in dancing, you have a leader and a follower, if we're doing the 2 people type of dance. And if we have an experienced dancer and an inexperienced dancer, the experienced dancer can make them look good, right? Because they know how to lead and know how to use I did salsa, right? So I remember like using the body and a little bit of pressure and the stepping and all that stuff. Yeah. And so if the person knows how to lead, the follower can pretty much move with them. And same thing for dogs. Like if you see me take a dog, even Kilo, who's not been trained formally, and you'd be like, wow, like Kilo's like really smart. He just like picked up on this really quick. And it's actually because I know how to lead and use body language to communicate with Kilo that he goes, oh, you're talking my language. Yeah. And he's able to just move with me. Okay. So that part, I think you'd pick up real easy. And, the tool I use is e-collar.
Is that something that I'll need to get for him to make this happen?
Correct. Right. Okay. So the reason why I only use remote collar is, let's say we have there's 3 kind of major styles of training. There's food-based training, there's prong collar, gentle leader, right? And then there's e-collar, just to simplify it. Food-based training gives you the lowest ceiling. Okay. It's like the success rate of food only is super low. Okay. And it's only successful to a degree. So like the recall or the come when called would never be reliable. Okay. Yeah. Because if he's chasing something more valuable, like let's say he's chasing a rabbit and he's running towards the street and you're like, hey, Kilo, come. And he's like, I know you have chicken, but I never get to chase a squirrel. Yeah. Or a rabbit. And he's in a bypass, he's gonna keep going. And you have no means of forcing him to return.
Right. Okay.
With prong or with prong or gentle leader, better, because now you have a tool that gives you much more leverage, but still when you remove that leash, it's going to fall short. Yeah. Right? You're not going to be able to, again, make him comply. With remote collar, whether he's running away because he's scared because something spooked him, if he's chasing after a squirrel, or if he's running towards the street, within that moment, if you called him and for whatever reason he was either too scared or too far gone, I can force the return using the tool. Okay. And every year I get like maybe 3 to 5 people who have kind of like how would you say, like a life moment where something just happens randomly. They're not planning for it. So I had a client here over in Lincoln Park. He was walking his dog off leash, and he turned, and then he saw his dog was facing a coyote. Yeah, yeah, I know. It was middle of Lincoln Park. He turned around. His dog was nose to nose with a coyote, and he called him. Now, in that moment, his dog came like that. Okay, there was no hesitation. There was no, escalation of that moment because he was able to remove his dog immediately. And he sent me a message, and I had put it on my Instagram. It's an older one. It's probably early 2019 or late 2018. Like you'll see a little post, and he's like, "I'm so happy that I did e-collar because," he's like, "I don't know what would have happened if I would have not been able to get my dog back."
Right.
Because they were 20, 30, if not more feet away from each other.
Yeah.
But because we've done so much training, he also had that reliable obedience. And his wife hated e-collar when we started because she felt bad, but he had that life moment. I had another client whose dog, she took him to the dog beach, and there's like a part where the fence goes down, and her dog hopped over the fence and started taking off down the beachfront. So she had to chase him down, and she was like, it was scary because he wouldn't listen to me. He like something else got his attention, and she's running through sand trying to catch her dog.
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens, and that's where like it really comes into play is with off leash control.
Sure.
Okay, so if you told me, hey, I'd only ever walk him on a leash, and he'd only be off leash in an enclosed area like a dog park, I would tell you like, well, you don't need to do e-collar, but I wouldn't take the case because the amount of money you're paying me to train using a method that I know the ceiling is down here, you would end up very unhappy.
You're right.
You'd be like, this is not worth $1,000, right? So that's why I just tell people, I was like, I do remote collar because when you leave, you're like, yeah, that's definitely worth it. And this isn't training, more training, and you pay me for more training. This is I go, what do you want? Okay, cool. We do our sessions, and then you're set for life. Okay. As long as you do your training, as long as you do your homework and you reinforce things, your dog is set for life. Unless you want to learn a new skill, like maybe you want to teach him the down command where he'll lay down and not move for 2 to 3 hours, and we didn't cover it, then you come back, do a class or two, and then you go and you practice it, and eventually you have a dog who will down for 2 to 3 hours. Okay. So the way that I train with the e-collar is you just apply it to your life. Right. So typically the first class is, again, almost always heel. And I show it to you. I teach it to you. You teach your dog. And I go, every time you walk your dog, you're going to do this now. Okay. So you're not having to like do like little training time. It's like your training time is your walk.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how other trainers tend to work. Like they'll like you do your training in here, and then you go outside, and eventually it'll transfer over, and it doesn't happen that way. Like we just right away jump into life. When it comes to the recall or the come when called, that one does take time because it requires you to go somewhere. Okay. So heel is usually the fastest thing people teach because you walk your dog multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Okay. With the recall, you have to practice kilo being 30 feet away from you and calling them to you. And then you have to practice that repeatedly, and then you have to practice it with things going on, right? And then we have to build it to the point where we don't need the leash anymore. So recall tends to take the longest. Heel is the fastest. Okay. And then the other stuff, it just comes down to, like, again, how much control you want to have, over kilo. So I have 6, 9, and 12-week programs. I think you're probably like in the 6-week range. Okay. With 6 classes, 2 classes are on heel, 2 classes are on recall, and then 1 class is on what I call the place command, which is, you could take a dog bed or like a blanket or a towel, or even like you have a doormat right there. And when you say place, Kilo would go to this object, and then he would lay there for you, for an hour, 3 hours, whatever length of time you're looking for. The reason why I do that is it's more lenient. It's easier to teach if we're doing a shorter time frame. So like if you went to a restaurant, and I know you said he did well the other night, but you said it was pretty chill.
Yeah.
But he also got excited when dogs were passing by, right?
Right.
So if we fast forward to the spring, summertime, obviously not going to be as chill, probably going to be a lot busier. There are probably going to be dogs within that setting.
Yeah.
That you want to be able to eat your meal and not have to worry about getting Kilo back under control. So that's where the place command would come into play. You know, you could bring a towel with you, pop it down on the ground, Kilo place, he goes there, and he can sit, stand, or lay down. He just can't step off of the area. Okay. So then this way, if people are walking with dogs and stuff, he'll get excited, but he should still remain within that little territory that you've given him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like using like a placemat like that. Would that be really effective? Like taking that with
you? A lot of my clients do that. Yeah. So there's technically two commands in that setting. Like you could say Kilo down and he would lay down, right? And if you've done your homework, he'd hold it for 2 hours or whatever length of time you're needing it for. The reason why I tell people to opt for place is because when you go to the restaurant, you know, you're wanting to enjoy that time. You want to eat and, you know, talk to your friends or whatever. So when you place him, it's go here and don't move. Okay. So it's more lenient so he can sit, stand. So if somebody came over to pet him and he stood up, you wouldn't have to correct anything because he didn't leave the area. But if he was in a down command, the down command is very strict. It's lay down, right? So he can't sit up or stand up. So if he stood up because someone tried to pet him or sat up, you'd have to correct them back into the down position. So then it's more work for you in order to reinforce it. So I'm saying, so it's like, oh, if I know I'm going to want to enjoy my meal and not have to worry about my dog so much, I opt for an easier command that essentially gives me the same thing, but I don't have to worry about what he's doing on a strict scale. Okay. And then the sixth class is typically like an overview where we would go over everything again. Sometimes, you know, the owner may like be struggling with something, or maybe they're having an issue with like the recall. Like I had a client that was having issue with the recall, that they were trying to go to the dog park, and when they would call their dog, he would just lay down and not move. Okay. But they're like, as soon as we put the leash on him, we call him, he runs to us. So he learned with the leash on, you know, that he needed to move, but without the leash, he was, you know, playing the game. Is like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So then the sixth class became that. We put him in the playpen in my facility. We put him with some other dogs. We took the leash off, and he did the exact same thing. And then we worked him through it. And then eventually he was coming to him without the leash, which is super rare. Almost everybody, they do the training, they practice, they use the environment, then they go to the dog park, and it pretty much just easily transfers. He just happened to be like a special case. So the 9-week program is, we would cover more obedience. So there's 6 formal commands. There's sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Okay. Those are the 6 family pet commands that are meant to be functional. I think nowadays people look at sit and down kind of like tricks, but they're meant to be functional. So if like, you know, if you're walking with Kilo and then you tell him to sit and you need to go off to do something and he needs to not move, like that's meant to be functional. Of course, if he's like running around with his dog friends, the dog park, whatever, or you see him, maybe you see a maybe not so nice dog and you want to get him to return, that's meant to be functional. Okay. So with the 9-week program, we would cover more commands, sit, down, stay. And then the 12-week program is all 6 commands, and then we build it towards off-leash reliability. Okay, meaning all 6 of those commands can be used with no leash. Typically with the 12-week program, the first 6 classes, we teach everything: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Then second 6 classes, we start to transition everything to off leash. Okay. So you'll be practicing kind of like the same stuff, but you're practicing it differently.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we transfer things to what we call a long leash. I typically use a 30-foot long leash, and we start doing all the recall, the heel, the sit, the stay, the down, all that stuff using that long leash. And eventually, you know, if you do enough, if you practice your homework, you can go to the park, take the leash off, and then have full control over your dog. Okay. From what I've heard from you, it sounds like you're in that 6-week range where it's like, you know, I walk my dog, I want to be able to take him places and make sure he returns. And then if I go somewhere, like he just doesn't move. Okay. Yeah. So with either of these programs, 6, 9, or 12, the recall or the recall I give you the tools to make it off leash reliable. Okay. You just have to practice.
Okay.
Because recall has to be off leash reliable. Otherwise it's pointless.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
No, I was just realizing one of the thing you mentioned about pulling him away from dogs at a dog park. Like I would love for that to be a thing. He's just too engaged with other dogs that he doesn't even hear his own name.
Yeah, and going back to that, the interaction with that dog, is with the e-collar. Like, let's say and dogs play rough,
Yeah.
so that is not out the ordinary. But it seems like that dog. So I remember in high school. Did you ever hear about the game Slaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there would be guys playing slaps, and then somebody slap too hard. Next thing you know, you had a fight.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing with dogs, right? They're roughhousing, they're wrestling, they're biting each other, and all of a sudden one dog goes too far, right? So now that would be a tricky setting because, like, let's say you did call him and he was fully trained, but that dog had a good hold on him. That's obviously something different.
Right.
But like, let's say you saw something escalating and you go, I don't like where this is going. You can actually calm him down or settle him down using the collar. Okay. So we do it all the time. So like at my daycare, a lot of the dogs that we have that come are trained on remote collar that we've trained ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like if the play becomes too escalated, we just give a little tap on the button and it settles them down. So it's like if they're trying to if they're tipping over that 5 to 6 or whatever, we just bring them back down to 3 to 4, and it doesn't make them not like the dog or anything like that. It's essentially, so dogs bite each other to correct. So think of the e-collar as a bite on the button, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So if he starts to do something you don't like, you're like, hey, that's getting too much. You just give a little tap and then it settles him. Okay. So it's not going to stop the play. It's just telling him, hey, you can keep playing. Just don't get that intense.
Right.
Okay. And it's easy once you learn the concept and how it works. It's, people ask me questions all the time and I just explain it to them. And then like, okay. And then they're easy. Like it just very easily transfers over. If you, for instance, you needed to see like how to do it, and you're at my facility, like we could put them in a play group and then watch what happens. And then I would coach you through it and then teach you how to taper him down if it becomes too intense.
Do you have recommendations on collars that would be good for his size? And
how much does he weigh?
it's like 55 pounds.
Okay. So you technically have two options. And Maria will send you this information.
Okay, great.
One is the Doctor 2300. That one runs about $287 with tax. It's a 3/4 mile range, fully waterproof, and they last a really long time. Like I've had my e-collars like 8 years now. So they're pricey, but they're gonna last for years. Yeah. The most common thing that I see is that the battery, because it's a rechargeable lithium battery, just like your phone, is the battery will die over time, right? So like maybe 2 to 3 years in, you go on the website, you find your model, you find the battery that you need, you order it, open it up, plug it in, close it up, you're good to go. Okay. The other model is a newer one. It's the Doctra 1900S Black Edition. I believe that one is like $325-ish with tax. The reason why I say that one is that's a step above the one I just recommended to you. It's like the best collar they have. And so the first one that I recommended is more of a traditional rectangle shaped box. Okay. So it can look a little clunky. If you don't care about aesthetic, you're perfectly fine with that one. The other one is actually rounded. Okay. So it kind of smooths over a bit more. So you don't have this big hulking box. That one is a 1 mile range, fully waterproof. And it's actually more power than the other one, which just simply means since there's more output, your number would be lower than on the lower power model. Okay. Right. So either of those will be fine for a kilo.
Okay.
And then Maria will send you the information. You go on Amazon. You can purchase them on Amazon.
Great.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, so are you familiar with e-collar, like how it works and what it is?
I know that it's not like a shock. It's like the chiropractor e-stim machine kind of thing. So
correct. Have you felt it before?
Like a muscle contraction.
Correct. Yeah. So it's like a miniaturized TENS unit.
Yeah.
So like
TENS unit. There you go.
Yeah. So where the collar is placed, that's only where he's going to feel stimulation. Okay. So if you were to take if you get your e-collar, you put it on your hand and you just lightly press down to make contact with your palm here. Usually about 15 is where people start to feel it. You'll press it and you'll go up, and then you'll start to see like your thumb move as you put more power, because it's just stimulating the muscle that then moves your thumb. So same thing for the dog. When we put on the neck, it only stimulates the neck area. He does not feel anything anywhere else. Okay. It's fully waterproof, and it's actually, in my opinion, better than the actual TENS unit. So the TENS unit, there's risk of electrocution. And there's also, if the person has like a pacemaker, they can't use it because of the currents.
Right.
And there's also risk of electrical burn if they don't set it up and watch it correctly. So with the e-collar, we have none of that. And I've worked with dogs that had seizures, heart murmurs, dogs that had like, medical conditions and things like that. No issues. So it's my go-to tool. Again, most people tend to teach it, refer to it as the last resort. And I'm like, it gets you complete control no matter what the setting is. Like, why wouldn't anybody?
Yeah, if it's the best tool, let's use it. I'm all for it.
And you skip steps. It's like, why pay for all this training that's not going to work when we could just jump straight into something that will, and then it's going to be lifelong. Okay. The most common question that I get with training is like, when does the e-collar go away? Okay. In my opinion, when you need it, it doesn't. So this means whenever you walk Kilo, whenever he's going to be off leash, it's on. Okay. People usually will ask like, well, if the training's so good and so effective, then why do I need the e-collar afterwards with training? And the analogy I use is driving. Do you drive?
Yeah.
Do you go on the expressway?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go the speed limit? So I'm going to take that as a no.
Yeah.
Yeah, neither do I, right? Most people do not go the speed limit on the expressway, right? And we know there's a speed limit. We're aware we're supposed to go 70 or whatever it is. And then when you see a squad car, what happens?
Slow down.
Slow down, right? That's what we call opportunistic behavior, okay? If you can get away with something without consequence, you will try it, okay? Right. So for dogs, think of that e-collar as a cop on a collar, okay? When it's present, Kilo's gonna know, okay, the cop's here, I have to be more obedient. I have to listen, right? And it's completely normal. Everybody does it. Obviously, humans do it, right? So dogs aren't dumb. They will recognize what the e-collar is, because a lot of people tend to stress that, like, I want to train off the tools. I'm like, well, let's say you do that. And you fast forward 3 years and something scares the crap out of Kilo and he runs for his for his life. How are you going to get him back now? Because that's not disobedience. That's him saying, my instinct is to survive. I heard something scary and I don't want to be killed, so I'm going to run away from it. Okay. So e-collar allows us to override that fear response, flight response, and make our dog return. Okay. So it's nothing good or bad. My dogs, again, to this day, will wear the e-collars if I know they're going to be off leash. And then, of course, like leash walking and stuff like that, if you don't want them like pulling all over the place, it only means it's present. It's not that you're having to always use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've done your training, it's just there. And he's like, all right, Dad's got the box on. I got to behave myself. Right. And then maybe once in a blue moon, because he's a dog, you might have to remind him. But, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's completely normal. Okay. Questions about that?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think here if there's anything I missed. So we went over programs, the collars you would need, what an e-collar is. Yeah, I think that's it, unless you have any questions yourself.
Road salts and affecting dogs' paws. Like, how should I be putting on those little booties every single time we go on a walk? Or like, why?
Are you? Like, has he felt it? And like, has it bothered him?
I notice him like after a really long walk, he'll be licking his paws, but I think that also could be that like that's just where the things were on his feet, the
Sure.
little booties.
Hmm.
So I don't really know. I've
Yeah.
been told like he's a husky. I shouldn't have to worry about the cold, but it's the salt. But
Yeah. What's your neighborhood?
I'm in Old Irving Park.
Okay. Um, are they big on salting over there?
There's just piles of it in the streets.
Everywhere. Okay. Yeah. So some dogs, like I know my dogs hate the salt. So what I tend to do is walk them where the grass would be. So I'm actually walking through the piles of snow as
Yeah.
opposed to the sidewalk. If you have to walk through sidewalk, chances are you're probably gonna have to do the booties.
Okay.
Um, I know there's a thing called musher's wax, but I believe that only helps for uh, fall to cold or snow,
Right.
and it's something that you have to constantly keep applying. Um, Somebody told me it helped their dog with the salt. This was years ago, by the way.
Okay.
But I would most likely say you're probably gonna need the booties if they
Okay.
if they salt very heavily over there.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Other questions?
Well, kind of going off of that, is there a training method or a best way to get those boots on him? Because when I put him on, I just have to tackle him down.
Okay.
Or is that
Is
just?
he running away from him now?
No, he just like when I try to go to put it on his foot, he'll be like, I don't want this on my foot, and yanking his
Yeah.
foot away.
I mean, you could counter condition him, which means using food to get him to like allow you to handle his paw and then also begin to put booties on. But that's going to be a process.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Um, the only thing I could see, like, let's say, you started the training and stuff, is what I'd probably do the first session is teach you how to teach the sit. And the reason why I would do that is if 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 I put him in a sitting position and if he moves, there's going to be a correction, so he's going to want to hold that position. Is it allows you to more easily kind of to grab the paw and
Yeah.
put the booty on. But when he pulls his leg away, you technically can't remote him for that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because he's going, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And he's not meant to wear boots, so that makes sense.
Right.
So that's where I would probably do that paired with food.
Okay.
But since he'd be stationary, it makes it easier. So you're not having to like wrestle him and then keep him still as you're trying to put the boot on.
Yeah.
I actually have a client right now that I taught their dog how to stand, because when they come home, they have to wipe his paws for to dry them off and stuff.
Uh-huh.
He would always like kind of just fall on the ground, and he's like an 80-pound burner weiler.
Oh goodness.
So yeah, so like they're like we can't have him doing that. So that's also another thing that could potentially help you as well. But it would just kind of depend. Okay, that's a tricky
Yeah.
thing just because it's like dogs being groomed. If the dog doesn't like being groomed, like I understand,
Yeah.
and it's pairing positive with it. So hope that ideally he'd be like, oh okay, like bring out the booties because I get a lot of chicken. So
Right. I mean, yeah, I could just take more time and introduce some treats because, yeah, I've been doing it in a rush in the past.
have you tried YouTubing it at all?
Say that one more time.
Have you tried YouTubing that, like putting boots on a dog?
No,
Give
I
that a
got
look.
the head collar thing from YouTube.
Okay, give it a search. I'm sure someone out there has got something. It's most likely going to be food based,
Right.
and if it's food based, you're not going to screw your dog up. Okay,
Okay.
so you don't have to worry about that. And then see what they do and see if that approach works for you. And then I would suggest that you use very high value stuff. So when I train personally, I don't use dog treats. I would use chicken and cheese and hot dog and bologna and pepperoni.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for the dog, right?
Yeah.
Depending they don't have any allergies or it's not something that's toxic to them. Which for dogs, avocado, onions, garlic, raisins, grapes, dark chocolate, and artificial sweeteners are toxic to them. Okay. But you should be fine with, any kind of meat, pending he doesn't have any allergies. Because that'll be more of an incentive for him to kind of, accept you putting boots on him.
Yeah. Okay.
And if needed, if you do that stuff, and if needed, you're still having issues with it, we can always turn that into a training session.
Cool.
You pay for my time, and then I just go, what do you want to learn today, aside from like, the stuff that we have planned?
Yeah.
So like if you did the 6, like I said, there's like one class that's usually left over as an overview. And if you're like, hey, could you just help me teach my dog how to put on boots? I'd show you how to do it, see what you're doing, make a few suggestions, we'd practice together. And then you'd have to, of course, keep doing that until eventually he'd let you just put them on them.
All right.
Okay. Other questions?
I think I'm good.
All right. So pretty straightforward stuff. If you're curious as to how the e-collar works, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see all our, clients and their training sessions. Lesson 1s are always good to watch because no one knows what they're doing. Okay. So it kind of, except for me, it shows you just like, oh, like Jesse started with this and then ended up with this. And if you go to our older ones, like in the summertime, this past in summer of 2020, we used to train at Oz Park, and Oz Park is super busy.
Yeah.
Dogs, people, strollers, rollerbladers, bikers, parties, bar mitzvahs, everything was going on. And we were training there. And we would get the results outside at Oz Park because of the e-collar, like that's how effective it is. So that kind of gives you an idea of like, oh wow, like this actually really works and works well. If you ever had any questions, or if you're struggling with something, what I typically do is if I have another client that had the same issue, like I'll just forward you the video and say, watch this. It's very similar, and it kind of allows you to it's like a little database of information if you're ever having issues with stuff. So
yeah.
Okay. Other than that, if you have any other questions, you let us know. Maria will reach out and get in contact with you, and she'll kind of reiterate everything I said. She'll give you the collars that I suggested for you. You go on Amazon, pick them up. When you do get them or get your collar, I do suggest you read the manual, and you also mess with it, turn it on and all that stuff. Don't do anything with Kilo. I'll end up sending you videos to watch as well, just to prep you for the training class.
Okay.
So this way, when you show up, we can just jump into training.
Sure.
But if you get the collar and you're messing with the dial, it goes 0 to 127 in increments of 1. Okay. If you see it jump from like 5 to 35 very easily, and it's kind of just jumping all over the place, you have a lemon. Okay. You're going to want to send that back. So then, so just let us know like, hey, I got my collar. It's not a good collar. I'm going to return it and exchange it. And then we'll just push you back if needed. So this way you don't show up and then you have a collar that doesn't work.
Right. Okay.
It's rare, but it's happened at least like once or twice a year where, because they're electronic, they'll send a dud.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Okay.
Cool.
All right, Andy. It was a pleasure talking to you. If you have any questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, Maria will be in touch shortly.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Enjoy the weekend.
You too.